Bills Mafia, what's going on? Welcome into your Thursday, October 17th edition of First and Five. I am your host, owner and founder of Built in Buffalo, Dave Myers. Today I have a special guest. I'm sure everybody's been paying a lot of attention if you're on social media to what's going on with the Bills in practice today. Obviously, the big news, Amari Cooper was at practice today. But I wanted to bring this guy on. We set this up last week. He's my go-to for injury information if you're on X. On social media. So this is Kyle Trimble from Banged Up Bills. I'm going to give him a few minutes here. He's going to kind of let you know what he does if you're not familiar with his work on social media. Kyle, great to have you on this Thursday afternoon. How's it going, man?
I'm doing well, Dave. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be here. Like Dave said, if you don't know who I am, I'm Dr. Kyle Trimble. I'm a physical therapist in the Buffalo area. Been running Banged Up Bills since 2017. And I really cover the Buffalo Bills injuries and kind of find any nugget and any bit of information possible to help provide the most context possible to understand how the Buffalo Bills are doing from an injury perspective. I also look at the AFC East injuries. I do fantasy football stuff. I'm on Locked On Bills every Friday. I've been doing content with Cover One. I've been pretty much anywhere and everywhere that you can be in terms of podcasting, video, writing. So my passion is being a physical therapist. I really enjoy following the injuries and seeing how the NFL navigates the injury landscape. And I really just try to provide the most information possible to make the Buffalo Bills fans the most informed possible.
I've seen a lot of stuff online today about the health of the Buffalo Bills. So how would you gauge where this team's at as opposed to before week one started? Because coming out of the Monday night game against the Jets, I feel like the Bills are starting to get a lot more healthy. Would you say that's a fair assessment as opposed to how they've been the previous 6 weeks?
Absolutely. I think we've seen like a reverse bell curve, if you will, just from a understanding what a reverse bell curve is. Like we see them get healthier, see them get, worse, and then they're starting to kind of come up on the other side of that. So the injury report looks longer than it really is with regards to some guys have been on there since week one. And we see some guys just needing some extra treatment, but they've been able to play through without restrictions. So they're getting healthier, and hopefully we see some of those names drop off in the coming weeks.
Yeah, it's funny because there's all those memes going around about the Bills. It's like a Rite Aid receipt or a CVS receipt with how long it is. But I feel like we've been here before, right? I feel like the past 2 or 3 seasons, we've been in the middle towards the halfway point of the season, just praying for that bye week so that we can get these guys healthy. And it's something that I have to give Sean McDermott a lot of credit in the training staff, because for the amount of, the capacity of these guys, and then the star power that has been on these injury reports. And we obviously talk about Micah Hyde a couple of years ago. We talked about Jordan Poyer constantly being dinged up, Matt Milano, DaQuan Jones last year. The Bills seem to find a way to kind of navigate through this. And then when crunch time happens, the Bills are ready to go with the depth and whatnot. So I do have the list that came out today from the Buffalo Bills. Some names that, like you said, have been on there, for the past few weeks. It was nice to see some stuff come out from practice today. Some guys are getting some work. Some guys were limited, and things like that. And we're gonna break down, a handful of players, the key players in particular that we've had our eye on for the past couple weeks. And I want to get Kyle's perspective on this and where he sees things going. So let's start with Ed Oliver. As we all know, he missed the Monday night game with a hamstring injury, something that happened in practice before the Jets game. So he was he wasn't wearing the non-contact red jersey today. So what can you tell us about Ed Oliver, and how do you see this progressing as we head towards the weekend?
He's progressed in the right direction. We saw him out there against one of the tackling, the blocking slides, I should say, today, which was very positive. He's leading with his left leg forward, so he's generating a lot of force off the left leg, which is where he injured that 2 weeks ago. The issue with Oliver is that he injured the hamstring on Thursday before week 5. So you have a short turnaround time from the injury to try to play week 5. They rolled him out pretty quickly. And then week 6, just due to the timing of the injury, by the time you have Thursday before week 6 comes around, he's only had a week to recover. So it's not so much the severity of the injury is the problem. It's just the timing of the injury. And they were hoping that he would be able to play against the Titans. And he appears on track to do that, which is great because he's been sorely missed the past 2 weeks. Hamstring injuries in offensive linemen, defensive linemen are pretty rare compared to your position speed positions such as your wide receiver, cornerback. So we don't have as much data on that in regards to literature and even from the practice reports over the past 7 or 8 years or so. Most of the guys who are on the offensive defensive line do miss roughly 2 games. That's just the nature of the position, just having to drive yourself forward, engage in the foot and pushing off the hip to really drive yourself forward. So could he have played last week? Maybe, but then he would have been hobbled and led to an early exit. So the Bills are smart to keep him out the 2 games due to the timing and then the nature of his position. But he appears to be on track to play on Sunday. He might have a questionable designation, but I would expect he'd be able to try to play given the time off and how conservative they are given the hamstrings with regardless of position.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's been sorely missed, especially against the run. The pass rush hasn't been great, and as we all know, Ed Oliver, he has a lot of flashes of pushing the pocket. And this week, I'm not sure if it's something like you said. Would love to see him get back out there, get back in playing shape, and have all, as many starters as possible. But this is a Titans team that isn't world beaters on offense, so I'm not sure if this is a depth thing where you have guys that are in place to play. But would love to see Ed Oliver out there. I think we all would. All right, so let's switch to the offensive side. Let's talk about James Cook. Obviously, we saw a couple weeks ago that toe injury. If you slow it down, it looks pretty nasty. Now, is that considered turf toe or is that a fracture or what? Like, for everybody that doesn't know what's going on with his toe, and he was also not wearing a red non-contact jersey today, which is a good sign. But kind of break down his injury, what you see. If I'm sure you've looked at it in slow motion, see how it smashed into the turf. It looked rough, and see how that could affect him long term, short term, and long term. And if you think he's going to be able to give it a go on Sunday.
So, like you said, he injured the toe. It slammed into the turf. This was at the end of the Week 5 game against Houston, and he did secure the catch and was in bounds, but they didn't, challenge that. But he didn't return to the game after his foot slammed into the turf. That is the classic mechanism for a turf toe, where you get the hyperextension of the toe. The benefit that Cook had was he did not have somebody's weight coming over him. It wasn't like he had the foot flex forward and then somebody kind of collapsed on the foot and further stretching the toe there. So yes, this could be turf toe, but it could be more on the milder side of that because he didn't have that external pressure pushing out. It was only just gravity, force, that everything that slammed into that caused the foot to slam into the turf there. It was interesting last week that his agency came out and said he planned on playing. So I thought, well, maybe it wasn't turf toe. Maybe he just stubbed it. I mean, that could still be a very painful injury. I took that hook, line, and sinker, and I thought, well, if the agency says he's going to play, then I expect he's going to try to play him. I know he's questionable heading into the game, and they said that ultimately the pain was just too much. He could not play, and he eventually was ruled out. The fact that he's not in a red non-contact jersey this week is promising, but we're also kind of wait and see what happens when we get the practice report later today on Thursday and even what Friday looks like there. The Bills have been conservative with turf toe injuries in the past. We saw how Curtis Samuel missed some time in the preseason. We saw Dwayne Smoot miss 2 games to begin the season because he injured his toe early prior to Week 1. Even going back several years, Zach Moss, he suffered a turf toe injury back in, I think it was Miami against in like Week 3, and he missed like the next 3 weeks after being limited. So it really just comes down to severity, how well he can push off the toe, how much pain can he manage and not make it be worse. I think if he does play, he's set more in the passing game, like I thought he would be last week had he played. And they give more of the reps to Ray Davis, Ty Johnson, where they could bang up the middle. Because if he's trying to dig his toe into the dirt to get that extra yard or two, that can only aggravate it. Whereas if he's out in space and running and gets pushed out of bounds, that's gonna be less stress on his toe than compared to try to run up the middle.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see because we saw how effective Ray Davis was. And do we want James Cook out there? I still think he's one of the best Bills skill position players, but I'd rather have a healthy James Cook heading towards the home stretch or even, getting towards the bye and he's healthy and he can work all that stuff out. Because like you said, You mentioned Curtis Samuel. Is that something, because I know he's had turf toe injuries in the past? Is that, and this is kind of off topic, but I really kind of want to pick your brain on this. Is that something that could be lingering him, and maybe why he's not being used to his full potential, and we're kind of seeing him in sporadic doses here and there? He's not running the ball like the Commanders and the Panthers did, especially when Joe Brady had him in Carolina. And he's kind of just doing bubble screens and things like that. Is that something that could still be bothering him? What's your thoughts on that?
Possible. I mean, he originally suffered the turf toe injury back in mid-August, and now we're in mid-October. It certainly could be lingering. I have a good authority that the toe injury wasn't much of an issue at that time when it did happen. So it's surprising that he stayed out as long as he did. We don't know the full story, but and then he was listed for the toe again after injuring the toe against the Texans. Though when he injured his toe against the Texans, that wasn't more of a turf toe mechanism. Like, we don't know even which side it was. I know in the Texans game, he injured his right foot because he kind of rolled his ankle a little bit, stepped on dust, and Knox's foot. And that could have certainly shifted enough pressure toward the toe if that was the previously affected side, who could have caused an aggravation to the area. But from what I recall, he's not on the injury report this week there. So I think it might be more just usage rather than the injury to Samuel. But he's been a guy that's played through a ton of injuries in the past and has production. But you got to wonder, maybe is age finally catching up with him? And it's unfortunate that Joe Brady, who has had previous experience with him, can't get him going. But he lacks a lot of explosiveness this year, and I don't believe it's due to injury.
Okay. Yeah. Like you said, it could be. I mean, he's going, age wise, he's not getting any younger, right? So maybe times with these guys, the healing process of something, especially when he has a history of toe injuries, coming over from Carolina, then Washington to the Bills now. All right. Before we get going, please smash the like button wherever you guys are watching this. If it's Facebook, if it's on X, if it's on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, hit the notification bell. That way you guys know when all of our content goes live. All right, let's keep it on the offensive side of the ball. Dalton Kincaid. Was there a time in the game that you could pinpoint against the Jets where he injured his collarbone? He wasn't a red non-contact jersey. I don't know how severe this injury is, if it's something that could linger for a while. What's your thoughts on Dalton Kincaid in his collarbone?
It's a unique one. I went back and looked through the practice reports. The Bills have not used collarbone as a designation for a regular season injury since 2017. So when you say collarbone, that's a particular bone. It's up in the shoulder girdle. But you either look at, if you're going to designate having a collarbone injury, I'm looking at more as a shoulder injury at the AC joint, or is it more at the sternoclavicular joint, more toward the chest? And then do you clarify that as shoulder or chest? So it's real interesting that they said collarbone. Now, I went back and looked at the film. He played in most of the game, and there was 2 instances where I thought maybe he suffered an injury. There was one point late in the third quarter where he came up slow after Jalen Mills took him down awkwardly. But looking back at the film, Jalen kind of wrapped his arms around Kincaid's neck and pulled him down, but there really wasn't a lot of contact with the collarbone, and he got up slowly because Mills was standing over him, so he didn't want to stand up and knock him off base. There was another play back at the 15-minute mark at the beginning of the fourth quarter where he took a pass on the left side, took a hard hit to the right shoulder, and then fell down, and then Michael Clemens kind of landed on his right side of his chest. That's my best guess as to when he injured the collarbone. Even though the collarbone is protruding out, there's still a lot of soft tissue up in there, the pectoral muscle. You have your trapezius muscle on the opposite side of that, and then your scalenes. There's some other musculature up in there. It could just be very painful, sore, because, Michael Clemens is a big person. To have somebody fall on your chest like that, even with padding, is still going to hurt. So I didn't see a ton of video of him today working his arms up over his head or doing a lot of catching, but it wouldn't surprise me if he is having some pain, trying to bring his arm up over his head, and they're just being cautious and saying, hey, the whole area is painful. Let's just let this thing get calmed down. Maybe you give an injection on game day and just get out there and play. But it's definitely a unique injury, but that's my best guess as to when it happened, and I don't believe it's going to linger based off of what we know right now.
Yeah, I think not knowing the severity of it, it'd be kind of hard to, kind of guesstimate, I guess, how long this could linger. if we see him, hopefully we'll see him on Sunday. And if he doesn't play, then obviously we can try to maybe start speculating, and maybe it's something a little bit more serious than we had initially thought. All right, let's talk about DaQuan Jones, because he showed up on the injury report with a foot injury. He didn't practice today. The Bills classified it as a vet rest day. Is there any information that you know that's come out about DaQuan Jones when he potentially injured the foot? Was it in the game? What part of the game possibly, or if this is just something that was practice related? What information can you give us on that?
This is the one that I have not been able to find the injury on film yet there. I know he played in 45 plays and then had a few more special teams plays on Sunday, but this has been his normal workload. So that's a good sign that he's not dropping off or having to exit the game early. The fact that he's a veteran rest day today, along with the foot designation, is good in my book, because when I went back and looked and saw when there was a injury designation plus a veteran rest day, those guys usually didn't play in, and there have been always older players that usually get the vet rest days. So that could be a positive thing moving forward when you see vet rest day plus injury designation. My guess is maybe he got the foot stepped on. I mean, they're playing in such close quarters on the offensive defensive line that maybe he just needs some time to kind of let that foot rest. And he is an older player, so he doesn't need to get those reps out there. And of course, with some of the younger guys, especially on the practice squad, let those guys get the reps, get the experience, and know that DaQuan's going to be good to go for Sunday. I don't anticipate him having any issues unless we get new information, but nothing watching the game live suggests that there was an issue, or nothing that you can say, hey, he got up slowly or was struggling after this year, or a snap count suggests that this should be a lingering issue unless we get more information.
Yeah, I mean, having a healthy Ed Oliver and having a healthy DaQuan Jones makes a huge difference on that front four for the Bills defense. So let's hope that this is just something, maybe they're just being, cautious, giving him the vet rest day to just kind of rest and whatnot. All right, so what can you tell us about Reggie Gilliam and his hamstring injury? This seems like this might be something that's lingering. Have you heard anything different, or what do you know about on that front?
He plays mostly special teams, so you have to take that in consideration with the not necessarily severity of the injury, but when you look at his workload and what he's going to be able to do, because sometimes we've seen guys who have dealt with injuries that maybe would be missing if they had more of a heavy workload on offense. They can play through knowing that they only have to play 10, 15, maybe 20 snaps to a game, and they can kind of keep themselves loose on the sidelines and whatnot. There wasn't a great opportunity to really see what happened with Gilliam. There was one play early in the fourth quarter, but he had many snaps after this where he was running down the field as a gunner. He kind of got knocked off balance, stepped on his left leg, and then tried recovering on his right leg. I didn't see him grab for anything, suggesting that it was a hamstring, but just looking at how the mechanism happens and then just knowing the positional demands of everything else there, I wonder if that was when it happened. I'm willing to bet it was probably just sore. He's, tweaked it a little bit, but it's something that hopefully he'll be able to work through. He has missed time for hamstrings in the past. It's just one of those things, you're running full speed, trying to get down there. It's not something you can really prevent per se in his position, but hopefully he gets or at least a full practice in on Friday to have him play on Sunday. But given his special teams use, I would expect him to try at least play, because we've seen where guys who have only that role usually get out there and play versus when they have more of an offensive role.
I'm glad you brought up his history with hamstrings, because obviously I'm not in your field. And when I see hamstring injuries, I just think of those soft tissue injuries. And I think it's either lack of preparation or what have you. Is this something where guys, if they have them early on in their career, that it's something that just can be a continuous thing just based off of, the way their body is constructed or anything like that? What kind of insight can you give us on just hamstring injuries in general? And if it's something that it just kind of happens, or if it's something that guys can be prone to, or what's your thoughts on that?
There's a lot of variables that go into that. Sometimes it can just happen. I mean, you're asking a guy to run as fast as they can down the field and be able to stop on dime. I mean, at some point, something's going to redline and it's going to break. So, I mean, in the case with the hamstring, you're going to have a muscle strain there. So there are ways to help strengthen the muscles up and prepare it so that you can, reduce it. But I don't think you're ever going to find an athlete who's ever had some type of hamstring strain or, something that's kept them out for some time. So it's one of those things that happen. I think the biggest thing is, do you rehab it effectively enough to where there's not, lingering scar tissue in there where the muscle can heal up properly? Can you make sure you train it by using eccentrics and really challenge the muscle so that when it is asked to go 100%, it's not going to fail on you? We also saw with players like Christian Watson with the Packers, who had a strength deficit, right versus left, or however it was with him, but they've been doing like force place testing, which I know the Bills do use. So they look to see whether maybe one side is outputting more force than the other side, which could lead to a muscle imbalance, leading to hamstring injuries or other injuries of the lower body there too. So there's lots of different things that go into that. They certainly take every measure to try to help maximize the health and make sure that strength is even there. But still, some things, they just happen because they're asking the bodies to do maximal effort.
All right, so let's keep it on the offensive side. So we saw now last week and this week, Mack Hollins has been in a red non-contact jersey. We all know that Mack Hollins played Monday night, caught a touchdown pass. What's your thoughts on what's going on with Mack Hollins? Is this a precautionary thing? Like, is there something else that this could be lingering? Like, what's your thoughts on Mack Hollins?
He's a curious one because I know he was in the red non-contact jersey last week. We found out it was a shoulder. He originally injured the shoulder sometime against the Texans. I looked at the film and I found that it might have been on that final offensive series, and specifically that last pass that Josh Allen tried feeding him during that last failed final drive. He looked like he hit his left shoulder, kind of, flying down to the ground. Whether it's a minor AC joint sprain, they just need to protect the area so he's not aggravating anything, or whether it's something else. Like, there's not a lot of things telling you what's going on, unfortunately. Sometimes it's those things that we don't see on camera that we don't have a good angle for that sometimes do happen. But he was able to play without what appeared to be any restriction. He did not have a brace on the area. So it might just be you're an older player, something's hurting. Let's not get this aggravated so it gets fully healthy.
Yeah, I mean, mobility looked okay. I mean, he caught then the touchdown pass, the arms were up over the head. I think there was another time when they tried to throw another pass and it looked like he was able to, adjust his body on it and stuff like that. So I guess that's just something we'll have to keep an eye on. All right, so Terrell Bernard, obviously we know he's back. Huge part of what this team does on defense. A couple great plays against the Texans. He played this past week. He also was in a red non-contact jersey at practice. What can you tell us about Terrell Bernard?
He has looked so damn good. I've been so happy with him. I really thought he would be struggling a little bit coming back. I mean, I thought, hey, maybe he would miss 3 weeks because we saw how much Matt Milano struggled when he came back from his pectoral injury back in 2020. But Milano was getting in there, acting like he never was injured. The red non-contact jersey, I think, is just precaution so that, he's not having to wrap guys up or having any unnecessary contact and potentially straining the area. But it was almost like he never left. I mean, he had that interception against the Texans, and he's just in every play. I mean, he's going to get some big money when that contract is due for when the Bills have to look at that. But, I mean, he's just looked so good, and I've been happy with how his production is. Now, he's been a guy that's played through a ton of injuries before, so maybe he might have the right headspace to say, hey, I'm not going to be affected by this. It's just another setback. You build right back up again. But he's really defied my expectations of what you could look like coming back from pectoral injury, especially playing the linebacker position.
Yeah, he's definitely looked like there's a reason why we missed him, when he was out. He's definitely a game changer. All right, let's talk about Taron Johnson. Taron Johnson also wearing the non-contact red jersey in practice today. As we all know, had that huge interception Monday night. Is there any more information, or what can you tell us about Taron Johnson?
He looks like he's finally back to where the bone's healed up fully, where he's not going to worry about re-injuring it, whether he takes a hit to it, direct hit like he did the first time, or tackling whatnot. I thought I saw a few instances in the game where he was still kind of working his way back, and it kind of irked him a little bit. But I think as he got more in the game flow of everything, he kind of got back into the normal swing of things, and he had a key interception at the very end. So he's going to wear that brace on his arm for a little while longer there, just to make sure he protects the area, because I'm sure it's so tender if he hits it. But I have little concern for it to be re-injured, because how he injured the first place was a direct blow courtesy of Taylor Rapp, and it's just unfortunate that Friendly Fire took him out for as long as he did. But he looks great as well.
Speaking of Taylor Rapp, how do you feel about the Guardian caps? Do you think that's something that the league's going to go more and more and more towards? I feel like watching him and how he was able to just get in there and get contact coming off of a concussion, do you think that the Guardian cap had like it's almost like a safety net type deal? Or how do you feel about the Guardian caps? And I know this wasn't part of what we planned on talking about, but I think it's a really good talking point. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I'm okay with talking about whatever, I'm pretty well versed in
Yeah.
all this stuff, but the Guardian cap, if anything can help disperse some of that contact, I mean, because you have two hard objects, that force has to go somewhere. If you have a softer surface to help disperse some of that force, I'm okay with that. I mean, we saw it work for Mark Kessler years ago. He was definitely having his time, and I know there's another player around his time frame that did that too with the pro cap. But I know it's a vanity thing with some of the players. They don't either like how it feels in their head or they don't like how it looks. But I don't think that the Guardian cap gives the player more reckless abandon. But if they know they can play and they're going to keep themselves safe, and they're also going to help kind of keep those around themselves safe. Because I mean, imagine, does Taron Johnson break his forearm if he has a padded area hit his forearm versus a helmet? I don't know. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But if it gives him the confidence to play and knowing that he's less likely to suffer a concussion, we also see Rap wearing that Q collar is supposed to help promote some blood flow staying up in the brain to help cushion the brain. If there's anything you can do to help reduce an injury, I say go for it. Outside maybe a bubble wrap, hey, let's go for it. Because I mean, there's a reason why we're seeing concussion rates dropping because the Guardian caps are in practice. I don't know that we'll see every player go toward that in the future, but if it's going to help extend somebody's career, I say go for it.
Yeah, he was definitely, there was some impact on some of the hits he was making. Definitely the play in the end zone where he broke up that pass. I mean, it was like I like even like clinched. I was like, oh, that was a tough one. So it's good to see that he's wearing it, and I don't know if that's something he's going to wear all season or if he's just trying to ease his way back into coming off that concussion. All right, the one guy everybody wants to talk about, Josh Allen. We saw pictures come out and video come out today where he didn't have the glove on. I will be cautious about this because a couple weeks ago he was doing warm-ups pregame without the glove on, and then he came out to start the game with the glove on. What can you tell us about the time frame or the timetable of that injury, and if you think that he's done with the glove, or just give me an overall how you view this whole situation, because I think Bills Mafia is going a little crazy seeing him without the glove on. What's your thoughts?
I mean, it sounds like he's getting better. I mean, he's probably just feeling it out and seeing how he's doing. I mean, we've seen him get a little bit better every week with regards to, he really wasn't using the hand the first week, and then we saw him using the bags when he's going down the next game, he used his hand more. And then we started seeing him get rid of the tape, I think, ahead of the Texans game. He got rid of it in practice prior, and then he's getting rid of the glove. So, I'm sure whatever happened with his sprain or even a small displaced fracture or non-displaced fracture, whatever it is in there, it looks like he's healed up enough to where he's not needing that buddy tape. He's not needing the extra padding in there. And I'm sure he's going to want to be without the glove because it's going to get him better feel in the ball. Because we've seen a few instances where I'm not saying the weather played a huge part in that, but we've seen some gripping issues with the non-evolved side and how he's handed off. So if he can use that hand as intended and have a better grip on the ball versus using the glove, that's going to allow him to better maneuver in the pocket and run and do everything he needs to. So I'd be surprised if he does play with it this weekend. But I mean, he's Josh Allen. He's going to do what's best for him, and he's going to play through anything to be able to bring the Bills to a W.
Yeah, if the hand injury if there was a time that we could have hoped for it, I guess earlier on in the season when it's not cold, because I can't imagine having an injury on your hand and having your hand be cold as well, because, plus Josh Allen, I always have wondered, well, since the beginning of the season with this hand injury after the Cardinals game, I wonder if this has hampered some of the mobility that he's known for. Sometimes, yes, he has run and he has to, but Josh Allen has also become a guy who seems like he wants to make the play with his arm, and it doesn't seem like he's out there scrambling. And when he has scrambled, he has slid, which I think a lot of us like to see. Do we all love Josh Allen stiff arming guys? Yes, of course, but we have seen him, go to the slide. All right, before we get you out of here, I know this is probably a shot in the dark, but is there any updates that you can give, the fans watching on Matt Milano? I think we're all just anxiously awaiting some information on him and waiting for him to come back. What can you tell us about Matt Milano?
He appears on track. I mean, he's been seen on the sidelines pretty much every week. We haven't seen a brace on him, which has been nice. I mean, not that you have to be in a brace for a long time after a biceps tendon repair. It seems like he's doing everything he needs to. I wish we could get some insight on how those rehabs going. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see some stuff later on that they're making, now behind the scenes, but nothing has suggested he's having a setback. I had anticipated that he would come back in about mid-December, just about with the 4-month mark. And the fact he's been walking around and, we don't see anything or hear anything that says that anything's not going well. We need him back. I mean, we've been doing okay without him, but I mean, imagine getting a healthy Matt Milano back for the playoff stretch there. So no official updates, but we haven't seen anything suggest that there's been a problem either.
Yeah, I mean, I take this as like the Tre'Davious White, the first time he injured his ACL. Like, we didn't hear anything. We were all waiting. I think the Bills do a great job of just trying to keep a lot of this stuff in-house. All right, as far as anything else you want to talk about, as far as injuries, any other players that you're concerned with, anything that you've heard, anything that you've seen, anything going on in the world of the Bills and the injuries?
The other one we didn't touch on today was Khalil Shakir. He did return after missing the one game due to what is looked to be a right high ankle sprain. I thought they would send him out one more week, but we have seen guys come back after one game with a high ankle sprain. Gabe Davis did that several years ago, so there is some precedent for that. But we did see his usage be really restricted. He only had, I think, 2 catches for 19 yards, and I think he might have been more out there for a decoy, kind of ramp up his workload. But it was not surprising to see him not get a ton of work in, and they really limited his routes. So we should see him continue to get better and better. With the high ankles, we know those things can linger. But the Bills know best. And at the time when he did suffer the injury against the Ravens week 4, it looked to be mild because he was able to come back and finish the game. But let's just hope that he doesn't tweak the ankle again and that he continues to move in the right direction, because there was a big difference when he was out there in week 6 versus when he was missing week 5.
I do have, before we got out here, this is a really good comment from one of our viewers. Will Milano come back to the same level he was before he got hurt? It's been 2 seasons. Could there be any regression in his play? What are your thoughts on that before we get out of here?
That's a great question. I think if we're going to see a regression in play, it's going to be due to age and then probably knocking some rust off. So we're not going to get the all-pro Matt Milano in 2024 that we saw in 2022. You hope that he can get back up to some semblance of that in 2025. The biggest issue that we're going to see is how he comes off that leg injury. He was looking pretty good as he was working through preseason before he suffered the biceps injury. The silver lining with the biceps injury, he does have more time to get his leg right versus having to try to slowly ramp up throughout the season playing on it. So, will he get back up to it? We're going to see a small drop-off, but I mean, if a small drop-off is going from all-pro to Pro Bowl, I'll take that drop-off. But there's also a reason why the Bills have not restructured Milano's contract, knowing his age and injury history.
So let me ask you this. Is it harder? Is it going to be a lot harder for him to recover than the leg injury because he has the bicep injury? I know you use your arms a lot, whether it's crutches or whatever it may be. Is this going to prolong his original injury to the leg that he's coming off of from last year? Is this going to hinder that at all, you think?
No, I don't believe so. Because I mean, he was far out enough from the leg injury to begin with. And then, even the bicep stuff, I mean, if he had the biceps injury and tried to be on crutches and, that would have been a big issue, but there's enough separation between the two. You can still do pretty much everything full body, especially with all the toys that the Bills have in their weight room, that you can do everything full body without stressing the biceps area. I think the only thing he probably would have been missing was some running things and some maybe not a separate body things, like you couldn't do deadlift and a few other things like that. But the biceps injury might have slowed up some of his running. That's about the only thing I can think of that he would have been really prevented from doing, but he still do his strength training and really try to get that leg as healthy as possible so he can explode off it and do what he needs to do, come December, hopefully when he comes back. Yeah.
Lots of great information from Kyle Trimble, Banged Up Bills. Kyle, where can people find you if they want the best update injury information about the Bills? Where can they find all your stuff?
So you can find all my written content at bangedupbills.com. You can find me on X or Twitter, wherever we call it these days, Facebook, Reddit, Instagram at Banged Up Bills. I'm on Locked On Bills every Friday with Joe Marino. And then I make, guest appearances, such as today's show and everywhere else. And the DMs are open if you have any questions about injuries. I'm more than happy to talk about them. is something I have a passion for, and I certainly want to get the best and most accurate information out there possible.
Yeah, and I definitely think that we're going to have Kyle on again because this was good information. If you guys are on X/Twitter, follow Kyle, follow the Banged Up Bills because that's where I get all my updates as things are progressing, where you can't get information, from the Bills and whatnot. So for Kyle Trimble, I'm Dave Myers. This is the Thursday, October 17th edition of First and Five podcast. I'll see you guys back here tomorrow. I have Joe Miller from the Overreaction podcast. As always, for Kyle, go Bills.